Hi there, BookTube, it's Roz. It's the 2nd of August, and I realised that I better jolly well do an August TBR today, because if I didn't, I'd be finishing things and I'd get all confused about whether it was a TBR or an already read. So here we go, and I will try and do this with vim and vigour and not make it too long. So August brings two events for me. One is that it's Women in Translation Month, which is like plays right into things that Roz loves. So got to get involved in that. And the other is Faulkner in August. And I have to start with Faulkner in August because I've been promoted this year to be one of the hosts, which is lovely, although I'm far from being a Faulkner expert, but this is my third year of doing Faulkner in August, and this year we are reading Sanctuary. Now Sanctuary is perhaps not one of his most famous novels, but it has some good points for if I can tempt you to come and take part. It's steeped in that kind of Southern American atmosphere and sense of place. It's got, as I understand it, a relatively sort of melodramatic plot, plenty to keep you turning the pages, but it's not as odd as some Faulkner. It's not as odd as I Lay Dying or The Sound and the Fury, for example. So it's relatively accessible while still being interesting. And he wrote it in 1931 when he wanted to write a novel that would make him some money. Yeah, so it's, he was intending it to be something that people would want to pick up and read. It's not too late to join in. We're reading it in 4 chunks, so it's Monday of the first week. There's plenty of time to join in, and we've got a very lively Voxer group going for this. So say in the comments if you want to join us. Women in Translation Month. Now, what am I doing for that? A few things. Thing number one is something that I'm going to start this month, but I may not actually expect to finish it, and that's because it's Svetlana Alexeyevich's book Chernobyl Prayer, which she wrote in 1997, but the translation by Anna Garavin and Arch Tate came out in 2018, and I think it was translated because by then she'd got the Nobel Prize for Literature. So she's from Belarus, and Chernobyl Prayer is non-fiction. It's a kind of oral history about the Chernobyl disaster, and I've been wanting to read it for a while, partly because obviously I've heard wonderful things about Svetlana Alexeyevich, but also because, for the slightly sort of less glamorous reason, that I watched the television drama about Chernobyl last year, no, 2020, and was blown away by that. So I'm particularly interested to read this, but I have a feeling it's not the sort of thing that you want to just read cover to cover. I think it's going to be quite, well, interesting, but potentially grim. So I'll at least start it and maybe spread it out. Then I'm reading 3 novels. Nervous System by the Chilean novelist Lina Meruane, or Meruane, I don't know, not sure how you pronounce that, translated by Megan McDowell, so by a woman, translated by a woman, which is nice. And it was written in 2018, but the translated edition in English is bang up to date, 2021, and I saw Mark Nash really enthused about this book, so I've got high hopes for that. I'm reading The Chandelier by Brazilian author Clarice Lispector. That was written in 1946, although this is quite a recent translation, not sure the date. It's by Benjamin Moser and Magdalena Edwards. And Moser is a kind of he's translating or editing or jointly translating all her novels at the moment, as far as I can gather. And if you watch this channel with any degree of frequency, you will know that I'm on a bit of a Lispector jag at the moment. She's like my favourite new author of recent years, and I'm trying to read everything by her, and this will be the 5th novel by her I've read. It's her second, but it's my 5th to read, so I'm excited about that. Then my 3rd Women in Translation Month novel is something a little bit lighter that I'm really looking forward to, and that's Last Train to Istanbul by Aisha Kulin, and that came out in 2002 and was translated in 2006 by John Baker. Now, Berner's Bookish Adventures, Berner is Turkish, kind of included it in a list of sort of Turkish novels to read to get a feeling for what the Turkish sort of literary scene is like at the moment. And she's a Kulin is a really popular author in Turkey. This book was a bestseller. You know, all her books are bestsellers. So it's historical fiction and set in the Second World War. And I'm hoping that it will be really engaging and but also give me a feeling for, well, you know, what do Turkish people enjoy in their sort of in popular fiction. So that's my Women in Translation Month choices, but I haven't yet chosen this month the graphic novel that I'm going to read, and Tilly and I haven't chosen our play for our monthly discussing drama sort of slot. And it would be really, really great to do a kind of Women in Translation choice for both of those. So this is an appeal for any suggestions of graphic novels that I could read in translation by women, and suggestions of plays. Last year we read Art by Yasmin, is it Reza? Gosh, I've forgotten. I'll put it down below, which was great. But I'm keen for another, but not by her. Different woman playwright that's available in English in translation. Now, another historical fiction novel that I'm going to read this month, but not by a woman, but it is in translation, is this one, By the Supreme, by Augusto Roa Bastos, and this is from Paraguay, and it's my scallydandling choice for this month. So I haven't yet read a book by an author who is from Paraguay, so it's my first Paraguay novel or book at all choice, and it's a bit of a chunkster. I'm reading it with Hester Dunlop, who's a brilliant booktube commenter. It's slightly intimidating because if you read the blurb, it kind of, what does it say? It says, sort of a political as I lay dying, as in Faulkner, by way of Tristram Shandy, which is this very strange but wonderful old English book. People then, someone else compares it to Joyce, Borges, and so on. You know, I'm feeling, although I think it's the person it's about was a real dictator in Paraguay, and I think it's sort of got lots of almost like pretend sources, if you know what I mean. Lots of different. I'll talk about it when I've read it and explain properly. I'm excited, but as I say, also slight intimidation. Which means that it may be fortunate that my real life, face-to-face, in the flesh book club chose quite a light-hearted book this month. And because they picked a psychological thriller, I was ill and wasn't with them, but they picked a psychological thriller called The Book Club. You can see why they were tempted, by Claire Cooper. Came out in 2019. I know nothing about it really, but I have a feeling it's going to be an easy read, which is probably lucky. What else? What else this month? Well, poetry. I have to read a bit of poetry every month now. And the weekend before last, I was in Hay-on-Wye, the book town, and this second-hand poetry collection kind of jumped into my hands somehow. The reason being is that it's called The Tents of the Tribe. It's by Ibrahim Al-Awaji. It's a bilingual collection of Saudi Arabian poetry, and translated by, let's give this, Mariam Ishaq Al-Khalifa Sharif. And I'm intrigued because I've never read any Saudi Arabian poetry, but particularly the fact that it's bilingual. Although I can't read Arabic, I hasten to add, there's something fascinating about seeing kind of how it works in the Arabic compared to the English, I think. Yeah, I'm quite excited to read that. I've got two long-term kind of poetry things on the go at the moment. One is the Dream Songs by John Berryman, which is like a kind of fairly informal read-along with Alan of Big Hard Books and Classics and a little group. And I need to get sort of stuck into another chunk of this. And then, I'm reading Dante's Divine Comedy in the company of Tom of Tom LA Books, and we're virtually halfway through. Look, we're halfway through nearly Purgatorio, which means we're nearly halfway through the whole thing. Wonderful stuff. That's poetry. Then, what else have I got? Oh, well, how could I forget? BookTube Prize. I've got 3 new novels to read for the finals of the fiction group. I've got August and September to do that in. I've got one of them already out of the library. Steve kindly picked that up for me today. What a darling. I'm very excited to read this one because I've heard wonderful things about it from a number of different booktubers, and I haven't read anything by Akwaeke Emezi. I haven't read Freshwater yet, and everyone says their writing is well, it sounds like the sort of thing that I will enjoy. Obviously, I won't be able to talk about it until after the finals results are announced. And then, if at all possible, I've got another book that Steve got from the library, which I'm very keen to read. I've got to squeeze in somehow, and that's Light Perpetual by Frances Spofford. And this is one of the book along list. If you're thinking, why have I heard of that book? I read his previous novel, Golden Hill, which I really enjoyed. I've also read a bit of his non-fiction. He's kind of someone who writes about books in particular. And I'd really like to fit it in, even though it doesn't fit and it's kind of arrived somewhat spontaneously. But it's about an event in the Second World War when a bomb dropped that killed 5 children, and he's kind of imagining what the lives that they didn't have might have been, like kind of alternative history, I suppose, but for individuals. Sounds great. And I just saw Sarah of Hardcover Hearts give it 5 stars today and rave about it, so I hope I manage that one too. So that's my August plans. Love to hear about if you're reading anything similar, and really would love recommendations for plays or graphic novels that would fit with Women in Translation Month.